المصباح في زجاجة الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نار نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم صدق الله العظيم.
Madam Prime Minister, Your Highness, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a singular privilege for the Ismaili community in the United Kingdom to welcome you, Madam Prime Minister, to this ceremony. It is an equal privilege to welcome His Highness the Aga Khan, Her Highness the Begum, and the members of His Highness's family, all of whom have traveled considerable distances to be here with us this morning. The Ismaili Center is already a main focus for the activities of the Ismaili community in the United Kingdom. It is also increasingly becoming the central meeting place for many Ismailis from the 5 continents who visit this country for family, social, and business reasons. It may be appropriate, therefore, to give a brief background of the Ismaili community, recognized worldwide as the Shia Imam Ismailis, or in short, the Ismailis, and to situate it within the wider brotherhood of Islam. The bond which unifies all the Ismailis of different ethnic, cultural, and national backgrounds is their adherence to the tenets of the Ismaili Tariqah, which seek to interpret and provide a framework for the understanding and practice of the fundamentals of Islam. The Ismailis affirm the Shahada that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad, may peace be upon him, was the last and final prophet of Allah, through whom the Holy Quran, Allah's final message to mankind, was revealed. In common with other Shia Muslims, the Ismailis affirm that after the death of the Prophet, Hazrat Ali, the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, became the first Imam, the spiritual leader of the Ismaili community, and that this spiritual leadership, known as Imamat, continues thereafter by heredity through Ali and his wife Fatima, the Prophet's daughter. His Highness is the 49th hereditary Imam. Within the Ismaili community, the Imam is responsible to guide his people in the interpretation of faith and advise them on their material well-being, as Islam encourages a balance between these 2 spheres of life. Whatever the Ismailis in the United Kingdom may have lacked in terms of economic wealth when they first came here has been compensated for by their faith, their strong educational background, their spirit of enterprise, their mutual interdependence and self-reliance, their ability for sustained hard work, and above all, their traditions and cultural values and a highly developed social conscience. The sum total of these strengths and values demanded that the Ismailis did not become a burden on their host country. They have, in less than a decade and a half, integrated themselves in all areas of economic, intellectual, and social activities of this country. In the field of voluntary services, Ismailis, individually and collectively, are making a contribution in a wide diversity of activities. I believe that the Ismaili community is making a sincere effort to build bridges with the many communities which live in this country. It is my earnest hope that the Ismaili Center will become a symbol of the ancient Ismaili tradition to make a meaningful contribution to the national life in which they so fully partake. I'd like to express our most sincere and warmest gratitude to Her Majesty's government and the people of United Kingdom for allowing us to make our home in this country, for allowing us the freedom to practice our faith, and for facilitating our relatively painless integration into the mainstream of national life. In building the Ismaili Center, exceptional demands were placed on the architects and all those involved with the design, from advisors to craftsmen. For they had to devise a cross-cultural architectural language in order to create on this site an entity that is unique and which, at the same time, blends harmoniously in an environment that is rich in architecture. I feel it appropriate, now that the fruits of their labors can be perceived, to express our admiration for their achievement, of which we are very proud indeed. I shall be failing in my duty if I did not publicly express gratitude of His Highness Prince Aga Khan, Shia Imam Ismailia Council for the United Kingdom, and indeed that of the entire community, to various government agencies and departments for their active assistance and guidance in the completion of the Ismaili Center. Equally, we have received unfailing courtesy and help over the past 5 years from the councillors and officers of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea and the Greater London Council. To all of them, I express our grateful thanks. The Ismaili Center, without compromising its essentially Islamic mood, seeks to create a sense of unity amongst the diversity of architectural styles represented by various majestic buildings surrounding us. I'd like to assure you, Madam Prime Minister, that all those who use these facilities will endeavor to enhance good neighborliness, unity, and harmony, not only amongst the residents of this neighborhood, but also amongst the citizens of this great metropolis. Thank you.
Significant because this is the first cultural and religious center in the Western world to have been built specifically for the community's requirements. In 1957, when I inherited the responsibilities of the Ismaili Imamat from my grandfather, the late Aga Khan, it seemed inconceivable that we would ever have substantial communities in the West. Our people were too deeply rooted in India and Pakistan, in Syria and Iran, in many African countries, and in Central Asia and the Far East. However, that was before the winds of change had begun to blow across the colonies where many Ismailis lived. Since the late 1950s, there have been enormous changes both in the Commonwealth and in the Third World. During this relatively short time, many developing countries have passed through the entire process of being born as independent nations and of growing to maturity with all that can mean in human terms. Some of these transitions have been slow and peaceful, some brutally fast. There have been wars in the Indian subcontinent and expulsions of citizens from Africa. For many people, it has been a turbulent quarter century. Inevitably, some Ismailis have lived through periods of such political instability that they have been forced to move and have sought new homes in countries secured by the peace, the stability, and the respect for individual freedom which the older democracies offer. Understandably, those from the Commonwealth have often wished to stay within it. Under this pressure of events, the Ismaili community in the United Kingdom, which until early in the 1970s consisted principally of students, has grown in recent years, as it has also done in Western Europe, Canada, and the United States. Among those who have arrived have been doctors, engineers, accountants, and other professional people, as well as businessmen. They have come to find peace and safety on a permanent basis for themselves and their children, aspiring to add their part to the strength of Britain's economy and of its social and cultural fabric, to work and prosper both for themselves and for this country's future. This, then, is the historical context in which the Imamat and the community have created new institutions in Britain, one of the most significant of these being the centre which you, Madam Prime Minister, are doing us the honour of opening today. It is probably true to say that eventually Ismailis, like other groups which have settled in the United Kingdom permanently, may lose touch with their original languages and adopt many aspects of British life. But they are certain to maintain their faith and their traditions whilst accepting what seems best and most appropriate from Western civilization. This building is more than simply a place of congregation. Through the quality of its design and workmanship, it will be a bridge between the culture of the community's roots and that of its future, as well as a symbol of the hopes of people who have lived through change and turbulence and have ultimately found security here in Britain. They are proud that it now joins two other institutions of their community already established in London. These are the Institute of Ismaili Studies, concerned with academic and ecumenical research, which collaborates with the University of London Institute of Education and McGill University in Canada, and the Aga Khan Foundation, a non-profit philanthropic agency assisting some 500 educational and healthcare units or programs in Asia and Africa. The foundation is currently privileged to be collaborating with more than 30 other international organizations, both governmental and non-governmental. Among them are the Overseas Development Administration and Oxfam here in Britain, CARE, the Canadian International Development Agency, the Ford Foundation, UNICEF, and the World Health Organization. As a result of these and other social and economic development activities of the Imamat, particularly in Commonwealth countries, I have become keenly aware of the effects of the recent world recession. In the industrialized nations, it has forced radical rethinking on a number of economic issues, and here I would like to pay tribute to the pragmatism which you, Madam Prime Minister, have displayed in facing them. Although the economic problems of the Third World are certainly not identical with those of the West, no impartial observer could fail to recognize an increasing willingness among developing countries to adopt a similarly pragmatic approach, especially in the encouragement of individual endeavor. Many Third World countries are now reframing their policies. I could name numerous examples: China, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. As the President of the World Bank, Mr. Clausen, observed in a speech here in London in February, there is evidence enough that the most rapid economic growth in the developing world has been achieved in countries where governments have recognized that private enterprise has a critical role to play. However, the role of private endeavor in third world societies goes far beyond economic activity alone. It has long extended into healthcare, into education, into the crucial area of rural development, into almost every aspect of nation building. Nor is the newfound recognition of its worth connected only with competing ideologies. I believe that it is a reflection of the urgent need to make the fullest use of all a nation's available resources, of which in the third world, efforts of individuals are a major component. Islam emphasizes the duty of man to be productive within the context of his family and his society, but warns that enterprise without a social conscience is not acceptable. When they can be creative, people are far and away the third world's largest resource, and its largest liability when they are unproductive or lazy. Obviously, individuals cannot realize their potential unless governments provide an environment which enables them so to do. It is here in particular, Madam Prime Minister, that I feel the British willingness to articulate and promote fresh ways of thought is of such value. Creative, industrialized nations, new or old, can exercise considerable influence in the third world by encouraging governments there to test new ideas. And those ideas are destined to become increasingly powerful as the revolution in communications exposes more and more people, particularly the vast rural majority of the developing countries, to their impact. Speaking as a Muslim, I feel that a pragmatic approach can be particularly helpful at a time like the present, when the Islamic world as a whole is subject to pressures, both internal and external, which have had few precedents in its history. Those internal pressures include conflict between different interpretations of our faith, conducted sometimes openly through war and elsewhere covertly, through the use of finance and propaganda. Meanwhile, extraneous forces such as the famine now blighting much of Muslim sub-Saharan Africa contrast with the extreme wealth which has come to the desert lands of the Gulf and create an increasing polarization within the Islamic world. Against this background, ordinary Muslims strive to express their legitimate desire to identify ways of life and institutions which will reflect their own unique heritage of faith and culture. They strive to find and hold to a path of stability between democracy and totalitarianism, between Islamic belief and secularism, between the pressures of poverty and of wealth. Responding to this search, many countries are testing economic philosophies in pursuit of forms acceptable to the specific ethos of our faith. Similar inquiry is submitting jurists and the laws by which Muslims live to scrutiny in an effort to restore their Islamic authenticity. Western structures of government and systems of national consultation are being analyzed with the objective of finding alternatives that are more sympathetic to the societies, culture, and faith of Muslims, but which will nevertheless guarantee peaceful, equitable, and stable processes of change. I believe there is a need for the West to show empathy with these aspirations, and to recognize that although the example of pragmatism may stimulate thought and activity in the Islamic world, Western methods and criteria of judgment are not necessarily themselves appropriate to the tasks which Muslims face. I am often struck by the imbalance of comprehension between the Christian and Islamic cultures. Of course, in government, and well-informed specialized institutions, universities for example, the perception is accurate. But the general public in the West is too often shown the Ummah, the worldwide community of 800 million Muslims, as a monolithic block of believers whose national political disputes are part of their religion. Such a distorted portrayal of the true background both causes unnecessary misunderstanding of Islamic questions and hinders mature response to them. In reality, certain expressions of political action cannot be considered representative of that faith of peace which so many millions of people practice every day, nor because their majority is rural and isolated are its feelings reported. The silent majority is indeed silent. It is my deep conviction that a strong consensus of wisdom does exist within the Islamic world, and that the silent majority of Muslims wishes to heal divisions, not exacerbate them. This desire is one which the Ismaili community, being spread virtually throughout the Ummah, has good cause both to appreciate and to share. Given a wider understanding of the forces acting upon the Islamic Ummah, I am sure that the industrialized nations can help to add strength to its efforts for peace and the world economy. I believe, Madam Prime Minister, that your presence here today is proof of your own comprehension of the issues involved and of your willingness to assist in their resolution, as well as being an expression of welcome and consideration for the young Ismaili community now established in Britain. We are all greatly honored at your being with us, Madam Prime Minister. It is a source of pleasure and pride to the Ismaili community, and this center should be situated in the heart of London, and we now look forward to its becoming a valuable addition to this distinguished neighborhood. Thank you.
The honor he's done me in inviting me to perform the opening ceremony. I'm even more grateful, sir, for the address which you have just given us. As you probably know, sir, in our country, if 3 judges sit together in our courts to reach judgment on anything, one of them gives the lead speech, and the others then can say only, "I concur." There's so much in your speeches which I could say, "I concur," and leave it at that. But I think perhaps it would be as well if I were to add a few words of my own. The building of this splendid new center, which will provide facilities for religious observance and for social functions within the Ismaili community, must reflect a sense of both stability and of confidence in the future. There's been a small Ismaili community in this country for very many years, but I know that many members came here comparatively recently, as you, sir, have said, having been uprooted from settled and successful lives in East Africa. For them, leaving East Africa must have been a sad, deeply disturbing, and in some cases a terrible experience. But clearly the Ismaili community who made Britain their new home triumphed over these adversities and have found here a new sense of security and of belonging. And this center is a powerful symbol of that feeling. Britain, like so many other parts of the world where there are Ismaili communities, benefits from the Ismaili community in London is self-sufficient and independent, energetic and highly talented. It contributes to society in every sort of way, and at the same time its powerful sense of community, both spiritual and cultural, provides a firm and unchanging base for living. Many migrants who've come to this country to settle in recent years have had to come to terms with a life that is very different from their old one, as you, sir, indicated. In the process of change and adaptation, they have been sustained by a sense of purpose derived from a firm faith and a valued heritage. Britain is now more than ever a society of many cultures. And I think that we are beginning to appreciate the challenges and the opportunities that this diversity offers. There are many practical examples to show how much your community values and how much it gives service to the wider community. Many of the Aga Khan hospital and educational services are open to all, regardless of race or creed. The work of the Aga Khan Foundation in other continents also shows how your community adopts this positive approach. And I'm proud that the British government, with the foundation, are together financing projects of benefit to the people of Pakistan. And I understand and welcome that many of the facilities of this centre will be available for other Londoners to use. London itself is enhanced by the construction of the new centre, for which we are all most grateful to His Highness the Aga Khan. It's a splendid contribution to the architecture of London, fitting in easily with the other fine buildings of South Kensington, yet having its own distinctive and beautiful character. It's a monument to the determination of your community to play a full part in the life of our society, while at the same time retaining their own identity and independence. As I believe a great Islamic poet of the 19th century, Muhammad Iqbal, said, "For the individual to be bound to society is a blessing. It is in a community that his work is perfected." This new centre is a splendid testament to the words of the poet, to the vitality of the Ismaili community here. And it is in that spirit and with great pleasure that I now formally declare the Ismaili Center open. Want it on the left? Where? To the left?
One of my most vicious situations is over there. Good. Definitely the company. Thank you.
Just a small memory of the occasion. Just a small dish to mark the occasion. This was designed by the man who did a lot of the interior decoration. It's just a small maybe we could introduce him to the
Killed off all of them. They restored it.
He was coming down the book, Chris. Remember, you did the song. All the I shall pinch it. Where
That makes two of us, right? Il y avait une question demain pour le comité de directif. Si vous vouliez que Alaïs et machin soient là, moi j'ai dit oui. Ah oui, il faut les faire. Coffee. A weak coffee. Every time I stand there, I want to have a teaspoon, but I don't put sugar in the coffee.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.